All right, guys. So on the topic of stop tipping, let's talk about this a little bit more. Be a little bit more clear about this because I think some people were confused about what I said. I understand that tipping has gone out of hand. It's a little out there. It's a little asking a little too much for someone at Starbucks to be asking for a tip. I also think it's funny when self-checkout terminals ask for a tip as well. Yeah, that's ridiculous. There are certain situations where tipping is the expectation, though. There's reason for that. There's only a few places I can think of. Dining, dashers, and strippers. Those are the three things you tip for sure. Valet as well, but honestly, if you guys are talking about how you don't tip, you're probably not using valet. Let's be real here, okay? But you tip your valet driver too, okay? I know they're doing something you could do, drive your car, find a parking spot, but surprise, surprise, you tipped them as well. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay. And I look, I already know the arguments. You guys act like I don't know the arguments. I said it's so easy, it's so predictable. Okay, let's put it this way. If you go to Gringo's, the Mexican restaurant, it's a good restaurant. I love the food there. The margaritas are great. You get fishbowl sized margaritas, delicious. Let's say you go there. Oh, hey, that's an alarm. Someone didn't tip. No, it's a Amber Alert. What am I going to do about it? Nothing. I can't do anything about it. Okay. So you're going to a restaurant. You're going to Gringo's. You are in America, so you already know what the expectation is. Okay, you already know they get paid next to nothing and they live off of tips, right? So you're going there. You know you're going to eat there. You know you're going to order maybe your enchiladas with pepe. Maybe it's going to be fajitas, whatever it's going to be, with a lot of margaritas, maybe a lot of Dos Equis. And the waitress was kind and nice and made sure your drinks were full. Make sure to give you your food right and ready when it was, when it was hot and ready. And at the end of it all, you decide to not tip her because you go, it's not my fault that she gets paid next to nothing. It's not my fault that she took that job. It's not my fault that the employer doesn't pay her right. I mean, you could say that, and you have a point, but it still doesn't make you not the jerk. That's the point there I was making. I was a bit heated in that video as someone who was a waiter at once. It sucks. Like the customers that come in there and will use the service and then act like everything's fine. They'll say, good job. It was great. And then they'll still not tip. Those guys are assholes. Those guys are jerks. You're not doing the waiter or the waitress any favors there. Okay? It's a dick move. And you know that. All the sort of cope like, oh, but in Europe. You're not in Europe. You're in America. But in Europe, I understand that. But it doesn't change the current situation. That if you knowingly partake in that service and you know what the expectation is because of the circumstances and you don't do it, it still makes you the jerk. Just like if you order McDonald's DoorDash when your lazy ass could have got that food yourself and you don't even tip, you're the jerk. You're the jerk off. You can try to cope. You can get in your circle jerk and cope together. That's fine. That just tells me there's a lot of cheap asses out there that do not care. And you know what? Dude, this is bring me back to those days when I was a dasher for a little bit. Those days when I was a waiter for a little bit. Those days sucked because people like you. Okay? All right? You can come up with all these excuses, but what it boils down to is you're too cheap to do it. Because if you have money to dash, you have money to dine, you have money to tip. You have an extra dollar or two. If you can't do the 20%, do the 15%. Do something. If it's good service. Now, let's say you go to Gringo's Mexican restaurant and it's just horrible service. Like, it takes forever for them to get to your table. They botched your drinks. They get the order wrong. It's just a nightmare. Okay, well then you have an excuse to not tip. Okay? Anything else is just you coming with copes. And I guarantee you the waitress remembers you and thinks you're an asshole. Okay? And you could tell her how it's really not you being the asshole, it's the establishment, but she's not going to give a fuck. She's not going to give a damn. She's not going to give a damn about that. What she's going to remember is that you are the asshole. Okay? And here's the thing. There's actually waitresses and waiters that actually enjoy the tips because they can actually make more in tips versus having a set base wage. If you guys were actually servers at one point, you would know that. Or there are those that are assholes, like some of you guys. Some of you guys are cool, I guess. But some of you guys don't tip because you think it's, I don't know, you're on some sort of a weird principle thing about it, which is dumb. Yeah, man, they're gonna remember you, and you're not doing them any favors. You're really not. So let's bring this back around. If you go to a restaurant where you sit down, you order from a menu, and you're being waited on, and the service is good, you tip. If you go to a strip club, you tip. If you order DoorDash or whatever the equivalent is, you tip. Okay? Very simple. Very simple. Everything else is cope, and you know it. That's it. I hope I cleared it up for you guys. You guys, and I already know your arguments. It's so predictable. Dude, go ahead. Flood the comments. I know exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. But it's all just cope. It's all just cope for the fact that you're too cheap to do it. And the people who are doing those services for you, guess what? They remember you. You're not the good guy here. With that said, y'all take it easy and try to have a good one.